Hello everybody, welcome to Shah Gardening's Tips Part 1. We're talking about soil here for planting vegetables, and before we plant vegetables we should know what's in the soil. And soil has basically three properties. It has a physical property, what we can see: sand, silt, clay, organic matter, some rocks in it and some weeds. And it has a chemical property, which are the minerals, the nutrients, the soil pH, the cation exchange. And then it has biological properties, and those are the microorganisms. Basically, the microorganisms are the most important part in the soil properties, because they determine the chemical and the physical aspect of a soil. And I just want to show you quick how you can determine the soil textures. That means the amount of sand, silt and clay that we have in the soil. And then by just looking at it and digging in it, it's easy to say if it has a good structure, if it is well aggregated so that water can stay in the soil and holds it, and the same with the nutrients. And to show you how it's done, to do it for the homeowner to see the amount of sand, silt and clay that's in the soil, it's very simple. All we need is a mason jar. Doesn't matter about the size. We need a lid, we need biodegradable dishwater powder and a shovel, and we need some water as well. So what we do, we get rid of the organic matter, and then fill the mason jar roughly with about a third of soil, trying to take out the rocks and all that stuff, because we have to shake it for 10 to 15 minutes. And if we have big rocks in there, we may have the chance that we're gonna break the glass. So that's a good third of soil in here from the garden bed. And then put about between 3 and 5 tablespoons of dishwasher powder in it. We put the dishwasher powder in it because the microorganisms, they build glues and the fungal strands in there to break up the aggregates and the micro and macro aggregates, so that we can determine the amount that's in there. And then adding the jar with about 3/4 of water. Perfect. And then we'll shake that for about 10 to 15 minutes, just to break everything apart, and that sand and silt and the clay can settle out. And usually it's the sand that settles out within the first 30 seconds. So, and then it takes up to 30 minutes for the silt to settle out, and clay can take up to 1 day. So we keep shaking it, and basically I've done it a day in advance, and we have a sample over here where everything settled out. And as we can see, that's where the sand, the coarse sand, the finer sand, the smaller sand, and then the silt settled out. And we have a very tiny hairline of clay. And the reason is why we have so little clay in here is because that's a soil that was brought in on site, and it's a good compost with organic matter in it, and was mixed with sand and used as and sold as a gardening blend. So, and that's why we have very little clay in it. It's usually, for soil texture, it would be an ideal to have 1/3 of sand, 1/3 of silt and 1/3 of clay. That would give us a nice clay loam to plant. And clay is important because for the cation exchange, for nutrient exchange in the soil. And since we have very little soil in that very little clay in that soil, I recommend to add a lot of good organic matter, like a good rich compost to it. And once we add to that soil, I would say 1 inch to 2 inches of good compost, work it in a little bit in the surface, and then you're basically ready to start planting your vegetable and enjoy the harvest for the season.